Cyberpunk Uncensored.
Hey, what's up everybody? This Cyberpunk Red crash course tutorial is all about critical injuries. But before I get into that, let me remind you, please like the video and subscribe on YouTube. I would really appreciate your support. Also check out the links in the description. There's different exclusive things I have going on and different ways you can join me and the rest of the Cyberpunk Uncensored community for some gameplay and other cool stuff. So just check all that out. All right, let's get right into it. Before I go into the charts and exactly, how those work and the different critical injuries and stuff, let me go over a handful of things that are very important to mention. So critical injuries work like this. Anytime you do a ranged or melee attack and you roll your damage, if 2 of the die come up 6s, it's a critical injury. Then you go to the critical injury charts and you roll and you see what kind of critical injury was delivered. So just to go over that again, melee and ranged attacks, anytime you roll damage, if 2 of the die come up 6s, you have to do a critical injury. So you go to those charts. And when you go to those charts, you're either going to look at the body critical injuries, or if it was an aimed attack to a head, a headshot. And don't forget that's a -8. I have a whole video on combat and all that stuff. Check that out. But if it's an aimed shot to the head, then you go to the critical injury head chart, because there's critical injuries to the body, critical injuries to the head. And like I said, I'll show you those 2 charts in just a moment and I'll go into that. The next thing to remember is anytime a critical injury happens, you deal an extra 5 points of damage directly to the target's HP. So man, if you land a critical injury, that target is automatically getting an extra 5 points of damage right to their HP. There's no ablation to the armor, so the SP doesn't go down an extra 1 or anything like that. And that also happens regardless if the attacking damage gets through to the target. So like, if you do a melee or a ranged attack on a target and say the damage that you roll doesn't even get through the armor, doesn't get through the SP of the target, but within that damage you rolled 2 6s, they automatically take 5 points of damage at that point, and you roll from the critical injury charts. So it's pretty cool. The other thing to keep in mind, and this will make sense when you look at the charts because there's quick fixes and there's treatments. Quick fix, basically it just takes a minute, and you can do that to yourself. It'll either be like first aid or paramedic or whatever, those skills. But a treatment, which is more serious, that's going to take 4 hours, and you can't do that to yourself. And the difference between those is a quick fix is going to remove all the negative mods and things that the critical injury has inflicted on you and is doing to you during play. Treatment is going to permanently remove that. Quick fix, it only removes that for like a day. But let's get into that. Let me go into the charts and give you some of those details and explain how it works. So if you land a critical injury and say it's to the body, it wasn't an aimed shot to the head, you go to the body chart here, the critical injuries to the body chart. You're going to roll 2d6, and then you're going to look at what it is. So I'm just going to name a few of them here and explain what they are so you get an idea how it works. But let's say you get a 2, and it's a dismembered arm. You completely lose the arm. You drop everything that you were holding with that arm, and you get an additional 1 to your death save. So anytime you're doing a death save at that point, you're getting that extra 1, which makes it even harder to stay alive. And you can understand that because you lost your arm. Now here's where the quick fix and treatment thing comes into play. So a quick fix, like I said, it takes a minute. It would typically remove those injury effects, for the day. A treatment would permanently remove that. Quick fix you can do to yourself, you can do it to other people. Treatment, you can't do it to yourself. You have to get it from typically a med tech or somebody else, or go to the hospital. But in this case, with the dismembered arm, there is no quick fix. As you can imagine, if you lose your arm, you can't just like duct tape it back on or whatever and have it work. So there is no quick fix if you lose your arm. And a few of these things don't have a quick fix because the injury is that serious. You'll see that in the chart. But it does have a treatment. It's going to be your surgery skill, so obviously you need a med tech. And it's DV17, which is pretty difficult. But you'll see as you go down the chart, some have quick fixes require paramedic or maybe first aid or paramedic. Some of the treatments have different DVs. Maybe it's paramedic skill, maybe it's a surgery skill, depending on the severity of the injury. It's either going to be a DV 13 or 15 or 17. But you can see here there's other things too, like if you roll a 7 on the 2d6, it's a foreign object injury. So basically at the end of every turn where you move further than 4 meters on foot, you're going to resuffer the critical injury bonus damage. So you get another 5 points taken from your HP, and that's direct. So if you get a critical injury and whatever that damage did, it caused a foreign object to be somewhere in your body, you're basically down to just moving like 2 squares on a map. Because remember, each square is 2 meters. But if you move any more than 4 meters, that foreign object is going to cause more damage and 5 extra points out of your HP, so that sucks. But you see that you can do a quick fix, first aid or paramedic, and just beat a DV 13, and you can perform that on yourself even, because everybody has first aid, and you might have paramedic. But keep in mind here, this is why I wanted to mention this one. It's a little bit different. If you look at the treatment here, it says quick fix removes injury effect permanently. So it's a little bit different. Other ones might be like, like I said, a quick fix just removes that for the day, whatever injury effect you have. Treatment is permanent, takes a little longer. You can't do it to yourself. But in this case, for an object, the quick fix actually permanently removes that injury effect and fixes the problem. So I wanted to mention that because it's a little bit different. But moving down the list here, there's all kinds of things like torn muscle, which gives you -2 to melee attacks, spinal injuries, and again, look at 12, dismembered leg, and it's similar to the arm where, there's no quick fix. You can't just duct tape it back on. It requires surgery, DV 17, because it's serious. But a dismembered leg, when that's gone, you get a -6 to your move stat, minimum of 1, obviously. And you can no longer dodge attacks when you're suffering from that injury. And your base death save penalty increases by 1, just like when you lose your arm. So there you have it. You see there's a bunch of different injuries, a bunch of different injury effects, and then quick fixes, and then treatments. But if you did an aimed shot to the head, there's a completely different chart. So let's take a look at that. And you can see here, if you roll a 2, and again, I'm just going to name a few and explain them so you get an idea of how it works and what you're dealing with. But if it's a shot to the head, let's say you got the 2, and it completely messed up your eye. Now you have a lost eye. Again, there's no quick fix. You're not just going to find the eye, pop it back in, and have it work. So you're going to have to get surgery. It's going to require the surgery skill, from a med tech. You're going to have to go to a hospital if you don't know a med tech, and it's a DV 17. But without the eye, you get a -4 to all ranged attacks and perception checks that involve sight. And then your base death save, again, you get that penalty increased by 1. So it's pretty detrimental to your survival and your combat skills at that point. But you see there's other injuries here like broken jaw, where you get a -4 to all actions of speech. Paramedic 13 to quick fix that jaw. Treatment, paramedic or surgery, DV 13. Not as difficult as some other injuries. But again, you got foreign object where it could be in your head, whiplash. There's all kinds of stuff here. But look at 12, lost ear. That one's kind of fun, and I like to explain my interpretation of it. So here's what's up. You lose your ear, it's completely gone. There's no quick fix, just like a lost limb or whatever. You're not taping, like I said, duct taping it or super gluing it back on and having it work. It's gone. So it's going to require surgery, DV 17. But a lost ear is gone. Whenever you move further than 4 meters in a turn, you cannot take a move action in your next turn. Additionally, you take a -4 to perception checks involving hearing, and your base death save, again, gets that penalty increased by 1. And I think the whole movement thing with the ear, because I can understand the -4 to perception checks involving hearing, but my interpretation of, can't move further than 4 meters, or if you do, you can't take your movement on the next, your next turn. I think that has to do with your inner ear and balance. You lose your ear, you just have a harder time getting around. If that's completely damaged, your balance is off, your movement's a little off. That's my interpretation of it. Now keep in mind here, anytime that you get any of these critical injuries to a limb or something that is, cyberware, obviously you're not going to roll surgery or paramedic first aid. It's going to be your cyber tech check. So it's that skill. So just keep that in mind. If it's cyberware, it's cyber tech. Otherwise, look at the chart here. It's paramedic first aid or surgery, and look at your DVs. So that's pretty much how the charts work. That's what's up. Let me just reiterate the main points here because it is important. Critical injuries happen anytime you do a ranged or melee attack and the damage has 2 of the die coming up 6s. When it does, then you roll your 2d6s and refer to the charts. You go to the body one, unless it was a named shot to the head, in which case you look at the head chart. Any critical injury gives an extra 5 points of damage you take from the HP. It doesn't ablate armor, and all this happens regardless if the attacking damage actually got through the SP and caused damage to the target. Quick fixes you can do to yourself. It requires a minute to do it, and it removes all those injury effects for a day. Treatment is permanently removing all those injury effects, but it takes 4 hours, and you can't do that to yourself. You need a med tech or to go to a hospital. So there you have it. That was a quick little crash course on critical injuries. Hopefully it was helpful to you. If it was, let me remind you to like the video, share it. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would really appreciate that. Also, check out the links in the description. Join me sometime on Twitch, twitch.tv/cyberpunkuncensored. I do live gameplay every week, and we always have the chat contributing to the gameplay. It's a lot of fun. We also host a lot of other GMs on like Sundays, Saturdays. I have like one-shots going on. I just opened up Patreon where I'm starting to do sessions for other people. Some streamed, some not. But anyways, yeah, check out the links in the description. Join me sometime. I'd love to see you around. So, all right, take care.